Have you ever held a penny in your hand and thought it's just 1 cent? Well, what if I told you that some of these ordinary-looking pennies could be worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars? Today, we are unlocking the secrets of for Lincoln cents that most people ignore. The 1973D, the 1980D, the 1982D, and the 1983D. One of these coins sold for over $18,000. Stay with me till the end, because you might just discover that you already own one of these treasures, so get it started. The Lincoln cent has a long history, dating back to 1909, when it was first introduced to honor the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. It was designed by Victor David Brenner, whose initials VDB are still present on the coin today. By the time we reach 1973, the Lincoln cent had already been in circulation for more than 6 decades. The coin still carried the same obverse design of Lincoln's bust, but the reverse design was the Lincoln Memorial, which was introduced in 1959 to celebrate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. The 1973D Lincoln cent was struck at the Denver Mint, which is why it carries the small D mint mark below the date. Features the portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner. Inscriptions include "I in God we trust" at the top, "Liberty" on the left, and their date 1973 on the right, with the mint mark D just below it. Displays the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparro. If you look closely, you can actually see a tiny image of the statue of Lincoln seated inside the memorial. The inscriptions include United States of America at the top, E pluribus unum above the memorial, and 1 cent at the bottom. The 1973D Lincoln cent was produced in very large numbers. Total mintage: 3,549,576,588 coins. That's more than 3.5 billion coins, making it is one of the high mintage issues of the series. Because of this huge number, most 1973D pennies are common and easy to find in circulation, but high-grade coins are much scarcer and more valuable. In 1973, Lincoln cents were still made of the traditional bronze composition, which consisted of 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc. Each coin has weight 3.11 grams, diameter 19 millimeters, edge plane smooth, no reading. This bronze composition was used up until 1982, when the mint switched to a copper-plated zinc composition to reduce costs. Collectors love the 1973D Lincoln cent because there are a number of varieties and era coins worth searching for. Some coins show doubling on the date, mint mark, or inscriptions like "Liberty" and "I in God we trust." These can be quite valuable depending on the strength of the doubling. Doubling can sometimes be seen on the letters in United States of America, or 1 cent. Coins struck with a misaligned blank show part of the design missing, which makes them collectible. When the coin blank wasn't cut properly, you may find coins with curved or straight clips. These errors create raised lines or blobs of metal, often making each coin unique. If you find one of these varieties in good condition, it can be worth a lot more than face value. The value of a 1973D penny greatly depends on its condition. Circulated condition: most examples are only worth 1 cent. Uncirculated condition: value can range from 25 cents to $5. Gem condition: these can be worth $50 to $150 or more, especially if certified by PCGS or NGC. Error coins and double die varieties can sell for hundreds of dollars depending on rarity and grade. Some high-grade 1973D Lincoln cents have fetched impressive prices at auctions, and red examples sold for over $2,000 at auction. Rare error coins such as strong double dies or dramatic off-center strikes have sold in the hundreds of dollars. These records show that even a common coin like the 1973D penny can have hidden gems worth big money. The Lincoln cent is the longest running coin design in US history. In 1973, it cost the mint less than a cent to make each penny, but by the 21st century, it actually costs more than 1 cent to produce every 1 cent coin. Many coin roll hunters specifically search for 1973 varieties because of the large mintage and chances of finding errors. In 1973, Richard Nixon was president of the United States, and the country was going through major events like the Vietnam War and the Watergate scandal. Inflation was rising, and coin production was still very high to meet demand. The penny was widely used in everyday transactions. This makes the 1973 penny a small but important artifact of its era. While the Denver Mint only produced business strike coins, proof coins were made at the San Francisco Mint 1973s. Collectors sometimes confuse a sharp 1973 uncirculated coin with a proof, but proofs only come with the S mint mark. If you saved a 1973 penny when it was brand new, today it has more value not just as a collectible but also for its metal content. The bronze alloy 95% copper means each coin contains about 2 cents worth of copper at today's metal prices, more than its face value next 1 cent 1980.
The Lincoln Cent series began in 1909, honoring President Abraham Lincoln on the centennial of his birth. It was the first U.S. circulating coin to feature a real person instead of symbolic figures like Liberty. From 1909 to 1958, the reverse showed wheat ears, the wheat penny. From 1959 to 2008, the reverse featured the Lincoln Memorial to mark Lincoln's 150th birthday. The coin we're focusing on, the 1980 penny, belongs to the Lincoln Memorial design era. By 1980, inflation was high, the value of copper was rising, and the mint was facing challenges in production costs. This would later lead to big changes in U.S. cent composition, which makes the 1980 penny an interesting last-of-its-era copper coin. Mintage and production. The 1980 Lincoln cent was struck at the Denver Mint. Mint mark, the small d under the date, represents Denver. Mintage: over 5.1 billion coins were produced, making it one of the highest mintages for any U.S. coin of that time. Composition: 95% copper, 5% zinc. Weight: 3.11 grams. Diameter: 19 millimeters. Edge: plain. Why does the composition matter? Because just 2 years later, in 1982, the mint switched from mostly copper coins to copper-plated zinc coins to save money. That makes all pre-1982 pennies, including the 1980 heavier and more valuable for their copper content. The coin was designed by Victor David Brenner, the same artist who created the Lincoln cent design back in 1909. Portrait of Abraham Lincoln facing right. Date: 1980, with a small d mint mark under it. Motto: "In God we trust" at the top. Word Liberty on the left side. The Lincoln Memorial in the center. If you look closely with magnification, you can even see a tiny statue of Lincoln. Inside the memorial, a hidden detail collectors love. Motto: E pluribus unum above the memorial. Words: United States of America across the top. Denomination: 1 cent at the bottom. Varieties and errors. Even though billions were made, error coins from this year can be very valuable. Let's look at some of the Famous errors and varieties collectors hunt for in the 1980 penny. Part of the design is missing because the coin wasn't struck in the center. Depending on how much is missing, values can range from $10 to over $200. Some 1980 pennies show doubling on the date Liberty or In God We Trust. A strong doubled die can be worth hundreds of dollars. These happen when the die gets damaged. You may see extra raised lines or blobs on the coin. Values depend on size and visibility. Anywhere from $5 to $50 plus. Repunched mint mark RPM. The AD mint mark may appear doubled or shifted. Collectors love these, and depending on sharpness, they can fetch $20 to $75 or more. If the blank metal was improperly cut, part of the coin's edge will look clipped. Values range from $15 to $100 plus, depending on severity. Coin values. Now let's talk about the part everyone loves: value. Even though this coin was made in the billions, condition and rarity of errors make a huge difference. Circulated 1980 penny generally worth 1 to 5 cents for everyday worn examples. Uncirculated mint state around 50 cents to $3. High grades MS66 and above can sell for $50 to $250 plus depending on the quality. The most valuable 1980 penny ever sold was a high-grade red example, which sold for over $1,000 at auction. So while most 1980 pennies are common, the rare perfect ones or those with errors can be highly collectible. Why collect the 1980 penny? Copper content. Pre-1982 pennies are more desirable because they're solid. Copper. Historical era. These coins represent a transition period in U.S. coinage. Error potential. Many varieties exist for specialists to collect. Affordability. You can start collecting without spending much. Always look for red, shiny coins with full original mint luster. Use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to check for doubling or mint mark. Varieties. Store coins in protective holders to keep them safe from damage. If you suspect you have a valuable error, consider getting it graded by or NGC. In 1980, the U.S. Mint stopped punching mint marks by hand. Before this, variations like repunched mint marks were more common, which explains why collectors often find RPM varieties in 1980 cents. The total weight of all 1980 pennies minted adds up to over 16,000 tons of copper. Imagine the sheer amount of metal used. 1 cent 1982 The Lincoln cent has been in circulation since 1909, introduced to honor the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. The design by Victor David Brenner featured Lincoln's bust on the obverse and wheat stalks on the reverse. In 1959, the reverse was changed to feature the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo, to celebrate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. By the 1980s, the Lincoln Memorial cent was already a familiar coin in every American's pocket. However, in 1982, the U.S. Mint made one of the biggest changes in penny history. The composition of the coin was switched from 95% copper to a cheaper, copper-plated zinc. This was due to rising copper prices, which made it too expensive to keep producing copper cents. The year 1982 is unique because both copper cents and zinc cents were minted. Copper cents weighed 3.11 grams. Zinc cents weighed 2.5 grams and had a core of zinc with just a thin copper plating. The Denver Mint, marked with a D Mint mark, produced a huge number of pennies this year, over 6 billion coins in total. So, when we talk about the 1982 D Lincoln cent, we are talking about a coin that could exist in multiple varieties, depending on its composition and the style of its date. 1982 was complicated for collectors because the coins were made in 7 different varieties across Philadelphia and Denver mints. For the 1982 D, there are 2 main types. 1982 D copper cent. Composition: 95% copper, 5% zinc. Weight: 3.11 grams. 1982 D zinc cent. Composition: 97.5% zinc, 2.5% copper. Plating: weight: 2.5 grams. But there were more. 1982 also had large date and small date varieties. That means the numbers on the date look slightly different in style and size. The most famous variety is the 1982 D small date copper cent, which is considered a major rarity. Only a handful have been discovered, and they are worth thousands of dollars. Collectors need to know how to identify these coins. Weight test. Use a precise scale. If it weighs 3.11 grams, it's copper. If it weighs 2.5 grams, it's zinc. Date style. Look closely at the 2 in the date. Large date: the 2 has a thicker curve, and the numbers look bolder. Small date: the 2 looks thinner, and the 8 sits higher and more level with the 9. Combining these factors is what makes the 1982 D coins so exciting to search through. The 1982 D cent is also known for interesting mint errors, which can increase a coin's value dramatically. Examples include off-center strikes when the design is not properly centered, double dies, doubling of the letters or numbers due to die misalignment, clipped planchets when a piece of the coin's edge is missing. Wrong planchet errors extremely rare. Cases where a cent was struck on a dime or foreign planchet. But the holy grail is the 1982 D small date copper cent. In 2016, one example sold for over $18,000 at auction. Since then, it has become one of the most searched for modern rarities in circulation. So, what are these coins worth today? Regular 1982 D copper and zinc cents. Circulate condition: just 1 cent face value. Uncirculated mint state: between 50 cents to $5, depending on grade. 1982 D small date copper cent. Extremely rare. Auction prices range from $5,000 to over $18,000, depending on condition. Because billions were minted, most 1982 D pennies aren't valuable, but the chance of finding the rare small date copper makes them exciting for treasure hunters. Collectors love the 1982 cents because They mark a turning point in the U.S. coinage. The transition from copper to zinc was permanent, and all pennies minted after 1982 have been zinc-based. That makes the 1982 cents not just pocket change, but historical artifacts from a year of transition. For new collectors searching through 1982 pennies is a great way to learn about coin varieties, weights, and die differences. The 1982 D. Lincoln cent might seem ordinary, but it represents one of the most fascinating chapters in American numismatics, with two different metal compositions, large and small date varieties, and the legendary small date copper rarity. This coin keeps collectors excited more than 40 years later. Last 1 cent 1983 D. The Lincoln cent was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. By 1982, the U.S. Mint made a major change. From 1909 to 1982, most cents were made of 95% copper and 5% zinc. But due to rising copper prices, in mid-1982, the mint switched to a copper-plated zinc composition, 97.5% zinc core with 2.5% copper plating. That means coins from 1983 and onward were no longer solid copper but instead had a zinc core. This change is very important because it affects the weight, durability, and even the types of errors collectors can find. The 1983 D. Lincoln cent was struck at the Denver Mint. You can identify it by the small D mint mark located just below the date on the of the coin. The total mintage was 6,467,199,428 coins. Yes, more than 6 billion. With such a high mintage, this coin is very common in circulation, but condition, errors, and varieties are what make certain pieces valuable. The obverse features a right-facing portrait of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner back in 1909. Above Lincoln's head, you'll see the motto "In God We Trust." On the left side is the word liberty. On the right side is the date, 1983, along with the D mint mark. Even though the design has remained largely unchanged for decades, sharp strikes and high grades can make this coin stand out to collectors. The reverse features the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959 to mark Lincoln's 150th birthday. Above the memorial is the motto E Pluribus Unum. The word United States of America arches across the top. At the bottom, the denomination 1 cent is written. If you look closely at a real coin, you might even see a tiny image of Lincoln's statue inside the memorial. Official composition: 97.5% zinc, 2.5% copper plating. Weight 2.5 grams. Diameter 19 millimeters. Edge plane smooth, no reading. Important fact: if you find a 1983 D cent that weighs 3.1 grams, it means it was struck on a leftover copper planchet from 1982, and that's an extremely valuable error. This is where the 1983 D. Lincoln cent becomes exciting for collectors. Some known errors and varieties include: rare 1983 D cents were struck on copper planchets 3.1 grams instead of 2.5. grams. These are highly sought after and can sell for thousands of dollars in auctions. Some 1983 ED cents have noticeable doubling on the lettering or date. Doubling can appear on Liberty, Indiana God We Trust or the date 1983. Prices vary depending on severity from a few dollars to hundreds. If the coin wasn't centered properly during striking, part of the design may be missing. The more dramatic the off-center, the more valuable it becomes. A section of the coin's edge may appear clipped or missing. These errors can fetch premium prices, depending on size. Sometimes parts of the die crack, leaving raised blobs of metal on the coin. Collectors love these unique one-of-a-kind errors. In circulation, most 1983 ED cents are only worth face value 1 cent. In uncirculated condition they may be worth 10 to 50 cents. In mint state 65 condition, they can reach $2 to $5. Rare varieties and errors can fetch big money. Copper planchet error $5,000 to $15,000. Depending on grade. Major doubled die hundreds to over $1,000. High grade or better certified coins, several $100s because they are hard to find without spots, scratches, or weak strikes. Always weigh your 1983 ED pennies to check for the rare copper planchet error. Look carefully with a magnifying glass for doubling on the letters or date. Store coins properly in holders or flips to avoid zinc corrosion. Zinc cents are more prone to damage than copper ones. For serious collectors, getting your coins graded by or NGC can add value. So, which of these pennies do you think is hiding in your collection right now? Tell me in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Lincoln cents, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more rare coin discoveries. And remember, treasure could be hiding in the change you spend every single day. Until next time, happy hunting, and may your pennies bring you fortune.